Hey everybody, so it's David here, and if you are here, it's because you have found my Facebook page or you've read on my blog makemomentsmatter.org and you're interested in some of the ideas that I've shared. Today I'm going to talk about my most recent fifth grade concert, which is based on the book What Do You Do with an Idea by Kobi Yamada. And I just wanted to share some of the process, how I came to decide on what we were going to sing and do in the concert, and share some of the resources I used and some things I've learned along the way. So, if you've never read this book, it's a really, really wonderful book. Basically, the synopsis is it's about this brilliant idea and the little child who brings it into the world. And so it talks about this little kid who says, one day this idea came along and I didn't really understand what it was, and it just sort of followed me and it wanted attention, and I tried to hide it because I didn't know what it was, and then I was afraid people were going to make fun of me for it, and so I didn't show it to anybody, and then I decided to share it with people, and people did make fun of me for it, but I ended up loving it because, what do they know? It's my idea. It's just this really, really wonderful book. The language in it is really beautiful. The pictures are just incredible. One of the cool things is that it starts black and white, and as you go through the story, as the little child starts to accept their idea, the idea grows, more color shows up on the page. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous book to share with kids. In the very end, once the kid really embraces the idea and says, I couldn't think of my life without this idea, and then at the very end, the idea bursts into this beautiful thing and soars off, and the idea, it says, is it's not just here, but it went from being here to being everywhere. It wasn't just a part of me, it was a part of everything. And the last sentence says, and then I realized, what do you do with an idea? You change the world. So it's a super, super cool book. I was really inspired when I read it. In fact, so much that I knew I was going to do this show, and I actually bought a little stuffed idea online, which is sort of cool. But I was really inspired by the book. So I decided I had to do a concert based on it, but what was I going to do? So I thought it was a really cool idea to talk about ideas. I liked it because you could basically go anywhere with the concert idea. You could talk about composers, you could talk about inventors or innovators, you could talk about creation, you could talk about the form in songs, you could connect to literature. There's just a million things you could do with it. So it gave me a really great basis to say, yes, of course this fits the theme because yada, yada, yada. So I liked the freedom that it would give me in choosing literature or choosing stuff to do with students. I also wanted to include more Orff instruments in a concert. I've never done a concert with Orff instruments just because at my first school I did everything off-site. At the high school wasn't able to, and didn't really have the instrument base I needed. Now I have it, and I have students who can play, and so I wanted to do more of that. So this provided an opportunity for that. With a concert where I'm building my own concert, I could absolutely include songs that would fit in with this theme. And then I wanted to involve my school community, and I knew that this would be a great way to do it. This is the first year that our school has a STEAM program, and I was able to talk with the STEAM teacher. We had a really cool integration moment. She set up a bunch of projects that my fifth graders had been working on for the past 6 weeks or so. She set that up in the cafeteria, which is right next to the gym, and so instead of it just being a music concert, it was a night for ideas. And so people came and they listened to the music and they got to see their students performing, but then they also got to go and see, one class had done 3D printing, and one class had done these super cool, huge machines, and they had done all sorts of things. And so the STEAM teacher was able to show that off, and I was able to show off the concert, and it felt like a really great integration. So I knew this book would help us get there, so that's why I went with it. So first steps, when I'm looking for songs and repertoire things to use for the concert, I asked in Facebook. I went to those Facebook groups that's like, I'm a general music teacher and music teachers. There's even one for my state, Elementary Music Teachers of Michigan. And I said, has anyone done any concerts about ideas or dreams or inspiration or creation? And I asked for ideas. And lo and behold, other people had been doing this. Schools with STEAM programs or schools that had been on a theme or whatever had great, great suggestions. So that was a great place to start to get ideas. And then I started looking through all my binders. I have a ton of binders. So I have a binder that's just stuff from workshops. So and I know that looks backwards because of my phone, sorry. But I've been to a lot of workshops because I'm an ORF music person. We have ORF workshops. I've also been to state workshops like Kansas Music Educators when I was in Kansas, or Michigan Music Educators. And I kept that stuff and I looked through to find things that I liked. I did my ORF levels. So I looked through all of the music here in those binders, anything I had collected. I sort of just looked through to find things that I'd tried before or seen before that might fit the theme, and I pulled them out. I also looked through the volumes, so if you're an ORF person, you've probably seen these books before. Maybe you don't really use them all that much, but there are some really, really wonderful things in here. There are also some fantastic recordings of students playing from the volumes. That can give you inspiration. You could also just look through the volumes. You can ask your friends, what from the volumes has worked for you. That's great for ORF arrangements. I also looked through basically any book that I thought would work. So I love Jeff and Randy, so I looked through Jeff and Randy books. I love Connie Saliba, so I looked through my Connie books. I love Artie Almeida, so I looked through my Artie books, basically just looking for any activity or song that I felt like would fit the theme. The other place that I looked, or a couple places that I looked, I was gifted a ton of Activate magazines by a music teacher who had retired. These are fantastic. There are some awesome songs in here and resources in here. A lot of them come with accompaniment CDs and things. So if you have access or a backlog of those, look through there and see what you can find if you're on a theme. The other place I look is that I have a bunch of old Music K8 magazines, which are fantastic. There are some really great songs in here. And so not only did I just look through these, if you go to the Music K8 website, there's a search bar where you can just search for products or whatever. There's also a separate search bar that says Music K8 song. So I typed in idea and hit, and then I typed in creation, and then I hit search, and then I typed in whatever, and I looked for anything that fit those keywords, and then I went to see if I actually had it in my old Music K8 magazines. So that I don't have to flip through each one. I was able to look online, which was sort of great. So I searched. I saved a bunch of things, sort of like Pinterest. I was like, that might work, and I just put it all in a folder, and I came back to it later and then chose from those things. So what was I going to do for the form of the concert? First, I wanted to read the book because I knew a lot of parents hadn't read it. So I wanted to read the book to the parents. So I didn't know if I wanted to have students read it. Ultimately, I had I made a little iMovie where students did voiceovers and actually read it so that then they wouldn't be put on the spot and then could think about what came next instead of thinking about reading or whatever. And then I could have multiple students read. It was sort of cool. So I wanted to do that. I wanted a song that sort of hooked people, so a song that would really connect to the theme and get people excited and started. I needed some recorder songs because 4th and 5th grade we do recorder, and if I'm going to send recorders home for weeks and weeks and weeks and ask them to play them in front of parents should see them playing well. And so I wanted a couple songs where students could do a really great job and play recorder and have it sound awesome. So I needed 2 to 4 songs, probably something that would fit the theme. And then I wanted some feature songs, some ORF instrument songs. And I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to do that. So I decided that I would do one special feature song for each homeroom. And that I would let, like Mrs. Garcia's class did their own special song and got to do that. I split it up like that because I had enough instruments that each student could then be involved in some way if I had the class do it. And it gives the kids a chance to play. But I also decided to divide it up that way because initially I wasn't sure, like maybe for one song I would just have one of the homerooms play and the other 3 homerooms could sing or could do a folk dance or could do a game or something. I wasn't exactly sure. In the end, it didn't work out that way. I just had each class do sort of their own thing, and then they were the feature for that. But, you could do whatever you wanted. You could have one class play while another one sings, or one class play while another one does something else. It's just a lot of moving parts. So it's sort of up to you whether you think you can pull that off. I don't know. So let me talk you through the songs that I actually did use. So my hook song, my song that sort of fit the theme, was from Music K8, and it's a song called Discovery. I heard about this through Facebook when I asked on one of those Facebook forums. Thanks, Christina. I miss you too. This is one of those that somebody on Facebook recommended to me. It was a really cool song. The first verse says, open your eyes and look to the future. Open your eyes and see what could be. Open your hearts and feel what could happen. Open your mind and find discovery. And then it talks about look around, discover all these things that are possible. And it's basically a song about possibilities and what could be. So it's a really cool song. It tied everything together. It was a perfect song. So why else did I like it? It's basically a verse and a chorus and a bridge, and that's it. And so the verse, kids sing it once, then they do the chorus once. Then they sing the verse again, and you can have a separate group of students to do like a call and response. So in that verse, it's like, open your eyes, open your eyes, open your heart, open your heart. It's pretty easy to teach that. And so I had one homeroom do the call and one do the response. Super easy to teach and quick, made my life a lot easier. The bridge is super quick. You can have a solo in there if you want. It's totally available and works as a song. And then at the end, there's a chance where they break into little harmonies. So you can have 4-part harmony at the end. It sounds super complex, but it is really not musically complex, which was perfect. So I liked it because it sort of pulled everything together. It was just a great song to feature the students in a lot of different ways. And it was easy to teach. And it sounded great. There's a recording to go with it. Parents loved it. Recorder songs. What did I choose? I had no time to teach this to kids, so I needed something that would be quick, and I needed something that would fit with the theme and would also sound good. Because again, I wanted parents to hear this, but I wanted it to sound good. So what did I do with the theme? I basically chose a basic song and an adaptation of that song. So I did Hot Cross Buns, and then in this book called In the BAG, I think it's by Janet Daly. Yeah, by Janet Day, sorry. It's by Janet Day. Great book. In this book, there's a song called Hot Cross Fun, where it takes Hot Cross Buns and they play it, and then it sort of inverts the melody, and so instead of playing B-A-G, it plays G-A-B, which is sort of cool, and it's got a fun backing track. So we played the original Hot Cross Buns all the way through and stopped. Then we played Hot Cross Fun. It was cool. We had a little intro where kids talked about in the actual speaking into the microphone, they said, like, it's an inverted melody. We talked about what that was so that parents could see, like, oh, we have interfaced with this idea, and I've actually talked about the idea behind this song. So then the next song we did, Mary Had a Little Lamb. We're just in BAG territory over here because they haven't progressed to that yet. So we did Mary Had a Little Lamb, and then we did another song from in the BAG called Mambo Mary's BAG. It has a little mambo beat, and it has Mary Had a Little Lamb. It adds a new B section that's sort of extended, just long tones. It goes back to the beginning and then has a new ending. Super easy, and in the intro to that song, the kids stood at the microphone and talked about it's a form. They added a new section. The composer took this famous song and altered it and whatever. It was just a cool way for us to take an easy song and to add an adaptation. So that was a great thing for us. If you're out of BAG territory, there are a lot of other songs where you can take sort of the simple song and you can add the more complex element to it. And that's what I did with Recorder. It worked really well. The other things I liked about doing that is that it's fun for parents to listen to, because when you choose a song out of a book like this with a backing track, parents aren't just hearing recorders blaring, so they can hear how it fits in. Kids tend to play a little better, it seems like. It was easy to pull off, and the crowd knew the songs. So win, 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 win. So that was the recorder part. I did just really quick recorder stuff. I did it at the beginning so then you could take off the recorders and they wouldn't be in kid hands and wouldn't be a nuisance. So we did that, and then let me tell you about my feature songs, the Orff songs. So each homeroom got their own song, and that was nice for me because I only had about 5 weeks to prep this concert, just based on where it was scheduled. I did not schedule it, but based on where it was scheduled, I just didn't have time. So to be able to focus and have each class do their own song, it built out the program, so the program was longer. So you had 4 full songs, but my teaching time, I really spent only about 2 weeks or so on each song. So when I see kids every other day, it meant that I could take specific time with that class, and I wasn't teaching it to multiple classes. It just cut down on time. So the first song, the one I did with one of my classes, was a song called Deep Blue Sea. It's actually inspired by Josh Southard, who came and did a workshop for my Orff chapter, the Mid-Michigan Orff chapter, this last year. And in his workshop, he told us about this book called The Deep Blue Sea. And it's a book for kindergartners probably, because it goes through and it introduces and it says, oh, the sea, the deep blue sea. And it shows you this. And then it says, oh, there's a rock, a red rock in a blue sea in the middle of the deep blue sea. And then it says, oh, there's a green tree on a red rock in the middle of the deep blue sea. And it goes through and it adds something new each page. Awesome. And so what Josh had us do in our workshop is that he added a little melodic line for each of the Orff instruments for each of those characters. So by the time you're done introducing all those characters, you have about 8 or 9 different parts, and each one has its own melody. So I was teaching each kid each part when we learned the song. So then later on I could say, okay, you're going to play this, you're going to play this, you're going to play this. So I taught kids, I pulled out the book, we went through each character, I taught them the melody that was associated with that character that I learned from Josh. And then once we had all those parts learned, we put it together the way we wanted to. So some of the characters that Josh had, we flipped around. So maybe the parrot has this one melody and the rock had this other melody. Well, we decided to flip it. So I let students make those choices. So kid involvement was I let them assign the parts, the melodies to each character. And some of it was pretty easy for them to figure out. You want the bass first and you want to add in slowly. I let them sort of decide that because they knew the order of the characters was going to follow the book. We tried it, we put it together, we tweaked it. We tried it once where as we were reading, we added in the parts and just kept going. And that didn't work so well. So then a student said, why don't we try it where we read the book and just play our little part twice and then stop. So I had a student read the book, and then I had each character, when the character was introduced, they played their part twice. And then at the end of the book, once the book was done, we went through and layered it out and made it into a song. That worked so well. Because when you have a student reading and you have other people who are trying to come in and make a song, build with like 8 parts, as someone's reading, it just got confusing. So instead, it was like, here's the parrot, and here's what it sounds like, blah, 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 blah. Here's the butterfly, and here's what it sounds like, blah, 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 blah. And then once we were done, we put them all together, and that worked really well. How does it fit the theme? We talked about how each character would sound like the melody that they are associated with. We talked about layering with the class, and those are things that that students introduced to the audience. We talked about layering, we talked about theme, and we talked about characters related to sound. Sort of cool. The next song I did was a song from the volumes. I think this one is from Volume 1, Pentatonic Volume, if you're familiar with it. It's Ding Dong Digga Digga Dong. A lot of people learn that in their Orff levels. If you haven't, it's a really fun song. There is a little tiny sung moment in it, which you can have students sing or not. It's just a great song because it has a lot of parts, and the nice thing about it is it's got this easy, well, not easy, but it's got this motive that is very, very recognizable. I taught the motive to all students on all of our instruments. And then eventually, once it was time to have one instrument play that motive, I said, great, who's going to do it? Well, we ruled out the metallophones right away because it has some 16th notes in it, and they weren't very good for playing melody. We eventually decided that the glockenspiels and the soprano xylophones, hey, that's what I would have chosen too, but the students chose it. They chose that to play the melody. So we ferreted out some of these other parts to other instruments. It's nice because there are easier parts and more difficult parts. So if you have students who can only do half notes, guess what? There's a part for that. If you have students who can only do a basic melody, and you would like, oh, I got to give them a simplified. Well, there's a simplified and a more difficult version of some of these little extra parts in here, which is really cool. So we use that song. One of the things that Orff people will tell you is that you do not need to follow the exact form that's in the book. And in fact, if you're doing that, you're probably not really following what Orff would want you to do. This is an idea. This is the way one person did it. So what my students did is we learned all the different parts and we made the form together. So the students got to choose the end form, which is great, and they felt a lot of ownership about that. They even got to choose which instruments played that motive, the theme, the bum bum yabba da ba dum da ba da dum bum 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 bum. They got to choose, which was great. It was so cool, and then those kids felt super ownership. The one thing that we did keep from the book, from the volume, is they have one instrument play the motive, and then they have another one do it in canon. So we kept that because we thought that was really cool. We started with singing it, then we started layering different parts. We got into the motive on the glockenspiels and the soprano xylophones, and then we had them layer it. And we did keep the ending with the tempo blocks in case you know that version. So kid choice, they got to choose the form. They got to choose some of the instruments that would play different parts. And how did it fit the theme? We talked about motives. We played it with multiple parts. We talked about canon. And again, all these things that fit the theme, we talked about that with parents just so they could see that, like, music is more intricate and we actually are thinking, you know, it's ideas that we're putting together, which is sort of cool. Another class did a version of Chopsticks, and this I got inspired. My friend Jennifer Donovan in Kansas City, who's a great teacher who taught movement at my levels courses, suggested I try it, and it worked great. I thought it was going to be a home run because I was like, kids know this song, is going to be awesome. No, they didn't know it. They didn't know the song. So I had to teach them Chopsticks first, and then I got to teach them how to play it. So basically I broke the song down. We taught it part by part. A very, very simplified version of it. I did not start with dun 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 because they couldn't do it. So to do it in 6, I didn't do it that way. I just had them do bum, 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 bum. We just slowly worked our way into it. And by the time they were done, they sounded really great. So we learned a theme, and then I showed them a video online that is Chopsticks with theme and variation. So they sort of got the idea of like a basic theme plus different ways to do it. And so then I gave them the chance to come up with a couple of variations. So we learned the theme and did the theme. One kid, and the final variation that they decided on as a class was boom, 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 boom. So it's a melodic plus 2 hits on the box of the instrument. It was pretty cool. So it was note, knock, knock, note, knock, knock, note, knock, knock, note. And guess what? They stayed together, and you could still tell what it was. It was awesome. For the final variation, students were like, can we play with chopsticks instead of mallets? And I was like, well, yeah, if you can find some chopsticks. So I sent out an email, and I got like 100 pairs of chopsticks extra than what I actually needed, which was crazy. So kid choice for this song. They actually came up with the variations that we ended up playing. So I taught them the theme. They came up with the variations on their own. It was a student idea when that came from. I gave them some examples on the piano. I showed them that video, but they came up with what they wanted. And then they decided the form. So original theme, variation, and chopsticks to the end. How did it fit the theme? It's theme and variation. So it's another way that you can like take an idea and do a different version of it. And it just shows a composition technique that students should see and learn about. So that was sort of cool how that fit in with the theme. The last sort of feature song we did, which is an Orff instrument song, was another song from the volumes. This is from volume 2, and this is the major drone bass triad volume, and it was Simple Simon. So if you've ever seen that video that like, what do we do in Orff Schulwerk? This is the song. And if you haven't seen the video, I'll put a link in the comments afterwards. But it's a super, super, super cool song. There's so many different ways to do it. But it's based on the little nursery rhyme, Simple Simon met a pieman going to the fair. Said Simple Simon to the pieman, let me taste your ware. I taught the kids how to say the poem. We learned how to sing the poem. We added the melody on the instruments. And then we added all of the different parts. Again, I looked at the volumes and learned the parts, taught all the parts to kids. And then I let them decide how they wanted to put it together for the final form. So each different instrument had their own thing, and then they decided, they're like, I think we should do it this way first. It stressed me out trying to do this because they had decided like, oh, maybe xylophones should go first. Well, and then metallophones, and then bass metallophones or whatever. So we tried it. It took a while. No, we didn't like that. Let's move it around. Let's try whatever. Eventually, there were some times where I was like, maybe we could start with the basses. And, I was like, that's the parameter. We're going to start with that first, and then whatever else happens, happens. It helped glue people together. So that was great. So the kids came up with the form. Again, this one is nice because it has more simple things that students can do and more complex things that students can do. One of the things that was sort of hard for my students, and I'll see if I even have it bookmarked, yeah, there's a part in here where, I don't know if you can really see it, but yeah, right in here where it has students where it wants them to play by thirds. Couldn't do it. My fifth graders just, we didn't have enough time. So instead I gave 2 alto xylophones, C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, and I gave 2 alto xylophones, C, E, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or whatever. Sorry, I sort of lost my voice. So I split it apart. There are ways to modify. Again, you do not have to follow the volume. Just do it your own way. Do it whatever works for you. So, kid choice. Kids actually, we didn't even follow everything that was in the volumes. They rewrote a couple things. They're like, it doesn't sound very good, and maybe we could just do this. And they came up with their own part. Great. And it sounded good. And then they came up with the final form. What comes in first? What comes in next? They decided how they wanted to do that. One of the things, and then how does it fit the theme? It goes from simple to complex. It shows how you can build upon an idea. It shows a through line from the bases and stuff. It just fits in with this idea of building on ideas and letting your idea expand and grow, which is sort of cool. And again, that's something that we talk to the audience about. One thing about all of this is that I taught all of the parts to all of the students. So as we're learning a part, each kid would play it on whatever instrument they're standing at. And then we would choose an instrument that maybe is a little bit better or worse for that particular thing. And that ensured that then every kid was active as we were learning. It wasn't just like, everybody sit quietly while I teach the xylophones this part. That's not what we did. Everybody learned it. But then also on the night of the concert, I had a couple key kids not show up. And I was like, hey, guess what? You know the contrabass part. You can come and sit because everybody knows that. And I knew who was strong and who was maybe not so strong. And I got to make some sort of final choices, which was cool. So if I had more time, I would have kids create the script. I did not. I sat down one night and wrote it out. And it was pretty quick. Again, I wanted to have the audience know about our process, and I wanted them to see that we were thinking and the kids were coming up with these ideas. It wasn't me who was doing all this. I wanted parents to see that. So I made sure that was in the script. If I had more time, I would maybe have students come in after school or come in sometime, or we'd talk about it and have students create that. Just didn't have enough time. I would probably add another group song if I had more time. And the concert actually with transitions and things ended up being about 40 minutes, so it was long enough. But I would love to have another song that was sort of a group sing. We just, again, didn't have time to teach that or learn that. I would love a little bit more rehearsal if I had more time. Didn't have time for that. And then I would probably throw in some more complex recorder songs just because we ended up doing BAG songs, and that was great, and it showed what students could do. And it was also nice because it was songs that parents knew, and then we adapted it and changed it. But, I mean, it would be nice to have songs that were a little bit more complex. We just didn't have the time. These are songs that we had been doing in class already that I could, copy home and copy off and send off as homework and that students could work on. But you do what you can. So this is how my concert ended up. And I'll just remind you again. So I had the video at the beginning, which was, students reading from the book, What Do You Do With an Idea? And it was student voices, and it was students doing that. After that, we had our little hook song or song discovery, which I would encourage you to look up on the Music K8 website. It's a really, really cool song. You could fit it into a lot of different program ideas. And then I had my 2 to 4 little recorder songs, partially just because I wanted to get that done first, but also because I wanted to have students take off their recorders so they're not playing with them as they're sitting on the risers waiting. And then I had our 4 little feature songs in a row. And then I actually had a reprise of the Discovery song at the very end. I had them sing it one more time, which was great. It hooked people in. I had the students come up and do the speaking parts. I had students helping with transitions. And by the time we were there for the concert, students knew, like, well, okay, I got to go to the instruments. I got to do this. I've got to do this. I had some little signal things that I used, and I could talk about that on another day if any of you are interested, just sort of help kids know, like, what comes next, what do you need to do next. But mostly it flowed pretty well. So, and we're doing it again for the school tomorrow for an in-school performance. So excited. I hope that goes really well. If you have any questions about anything I talked about today, or want to know exactly where I got these resources, or just anything about the process, leave me a comment here on the video. I do go back and I check those and I try and answer any questions that you might have asked later after the live video is over. Or you can always shoot me an email. My email is makemomentsmatter@gmail.com, or find me here on Facebook or whatever. I'll try and add anything that I talked about in the video. I'll try and add some of those links in the comments so you can find them. But thanks for listening. I hope this answered some of your questions. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thanks for watching.